test. This is only a test. Check, 1, 2. Sometimes it's also OBS is like, yeah, you just have to quick restart, but we don't want to do that right now.
I mean, it's definitely recording the audio that we're clear as long as it's not peaking us, and we can always adjust that.
And you could, it might be kind of confusing, but you could go to, you can go back to your meeting start now. Yeah, it'll let you hear it using the monitor now.
Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Hanover Selectboard meeting of May 16th, 2022. Here tonight to have some fun and do good work for the town, and it is a very special night. So, as always though, our first order of business is public comment. No public comment. So our second order is an organizational meeting for the 2022-23 Select Board. We need to slate, and we need to review our committee assignments. Would anyone like to propose a slate?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Peter Christie as our chair and Athos Racius as our vice chair. Are you okay with continuing? And Joanna Whitcomb as our secretary?
I second that.
Discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
For your
for serving,
service.
everybody.
Thank you, Peter and Athos.
And committee assignments. I didn't get any requests for changes. I get some offers that if people wanted to change, they would be willing to, but nothing that people jump to a different place.
Should I read the liaison appointments for the record?
Sure, for the record.
So for the Advisory Board of Assessors, Joanna Whitcomb is the liaison and Peter Christie is the alternate liaison, particularly when dealing with Dartmouth cases. With the Bike Walk Committee, Joanna Whitcomb is the liaison, Athos Racius is the alternate. Conservation Commission, Peter Christie is the liaison. Hanover Finance Committee, Bill Garrity is the liaison, Peter Christie is the alternate. Hanover Improvement Society is Peter Christie. Hanover Library Board of Trustees is Nancy Carter. Parks and Recreation Board, which is not active at this point, was Bill Garrity. Planning Board is Nancy Carter, Peter Christie is the alternate. Trescott Company, Peter Christie and Athos Racius are the two representatives from the town, two of the representatives from the town. I am the third, and obviously with my retirement, the board will need to make a decision on whom to appoint to replace me. And then the Upper Valley Lake Centipede Regional Planning Commission is Chris Kennedy and Jenny Chamberlain, and we have one vacancy in the appointed category.
So, we don't need to move those per se, but just are people in line? Okay. We have done our committee assignments. Wendy, would you like to give us our budget overview presentation? You're on. Our county commissioner, Wendy, please step up.
County Commissioner Wendy.
Thank you.
The Piper Primer.
Dr. Wendy.
Right.
Thank you for having me, and I promise I'll be brief. I'm sure sometimes I'm not, I'm gonna be. So 30 years of teaching, that doesn't sound very brief, does it? 30 years of teaching made me think that I wanted to talk about things that would make this the most interesting to you. After all, it's just another budget. That would make it the most interesting to you, and I thought that a way to do that would be to not just tell you things that you've already read or that you can read, but I wanted to start off by saying so to tell you things that maybe you don't know, I saw the very nice supportive letter in the Valley News a week or so ago by Carrie Callahan, supportive of the Hanover budget, and I thought I would use that as sort of my point of departure, or springboard. And so what I want to, I thought that maybe I would have a sympathetic audience. You're always very gracious to me, and thank you. But I thought that I would point out that we have some things in common.
Including budget challenges, right?
Yeah,
But ARPA's a good thing, Wendy.
ARPA is a good thing. ARPA is a good thing. So what I want to say is that you will read or you have read that our county budget is down this year by 0.93. It's a 16% decrease. Am I getting that right? 0.16.
Right.
0.16% decrease in the amount to be raised by taxes, and that's because we, like Hanover, are using one-time monies. So we're not using money from the undesignated fund balance, although we have done that throughout these COVID years for the last two budgets. This time we're using ARPA money to bring the budget down, and I'll talk with you about that if you don't mind in just a moment. But I wanted to tell you that, like you, that we're also doing that to help offset the burden to taxpayers on otherwise what could be a pretty challenging year. Like you, we have vacant positions that we're having a dickens of a time filling. The good news is that because we're not able to hire, and I'll again answer any questions and fill in whatever you'd like me to talk about, we're still having a terrible time hiring nursing staff. And so the savings from full-time positions does help us to mitigate the contract nursing expense.
Right.
So cold comfort, but it's there. And then finally, I just wanted to point out that one of our biggest drivers that's just making us absolutely cringe in terms of the budget this year is the fuel and the inflation costs, especially in maintenance. Maintenance, the sheriff's department for fuel, and the inflationary costs for supplies across the board. It's really terrible. So we would have had we not made this decision, we would have had a 2.97, which isn't too bad. We would have had a 2.97% increase in the expenditures had we not made that decision this year because of the challenges that residents throughout Grafton County are having. I did send Julia, and I know she forwarded it to you, just a little bit of an addendum, and that is that what we chose to pay for through ARPA funding were primarily big ticket items, and that was simply to make it a little easier in terms of accounting for our, right now she's filling both positions. Julie Libby is the county administrator and she's the finance director. So we chose big ticket items. A couple of examples are the contract nursing increases, which is $543,000. Happy to talk with you further about that. I'm sorry, that's $540,000. Social service grants that are $540,000. Broadband, we have the Grafton County Broadband Committee that we chose to help fund this year. We chose to, actually, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. That has been taken out of ARPA funding, but it wasn't what we used to bring the budget down.
Right.
So I'm just going back to page 1. Social service grants, contract nursing, and IT contract services. So last year we made the decision to outsource our IT services. It was a very good decision that, although startling for some people, and we're paying for those contracting services through ARPA. And that's a category of $10 million that county government can take. It's a provision for lost revenue. Like, had COVID not struck us, what would our revenue have been? We've lost money because of COVID, as have all of us. And so it's a standard allowance of $10 million, and that's what we took. So to just go on with the budget this year, just a few highlights. We did do a wage study, and we found out that we were 3% below market. Not awful, and so we've implemented the recommendations of the wage study. What we've done is try to place positions, place employees onto this wage study. they're in a current step, we use the step and grade system. They'll be going on to the step position in the current wage study in a way that there's a minimum of a 50 cent increase for all employees. There's as the average increase is 4.5%. It's as low as 1% and as high as 9%. The folks on the bottom of the wage ladder are getting the highest increases. The folks at the top are getting the least. And the reason that we did it that way, if I start to sound a little defensive, it's because it's not the most popular thing on the planet, but we're trying to take care of the health of the county as a whole. And so, for instance, in our nursing homes, some of those lower wage positions like dietary aides, activities aides, LNAs, positions like that are the hardest for us to recruit and retain, and so they got the biggest raise. So it's an average of 4.5 across the board. That's a sizable increase in the budget to do that, and the commissioners are very confident, no, comfortable, we're not confident, we're comfortable with the changes that we've made. It was below what some employees wanted, of course, because they wanted very large, they wanted 7 and 8%, and we didn't feel that we were in a position to do that. The executive committee might decide otherwise, but as the executive branch, looking at everything, we weren't comfortable with going that high. I'm almost done with my general comments. We do have 3 new positions. Commissioner Linda Lauer and I, she's up in the North Country, we agreed on this. We felt that we'd starved the departments of positions that they needed over the last couple of years because of COVID, because we were being hit every which way. And so as a result of that, there was a few positions, one in dispatch and one in maintenance, that have gone unfilled for quite a while. Well, 2 years, maybe 3, but at least 2. So we're in the position where we're paying higher paid employees to do lesser skilled work. Because of that and a couple of other reasons, we chose this year to fill those 2 positions. The final position was a little bit controversial. I ended up supporting it. I was kind of not sure, but Human Resources asked for a recruitment and retention specialist. Somebody who would be dedicated full-time to trying to go on sites, networking to fill the positions, primarily in the Department of Corrections, our corrections officers, and our nursing home. That's where we have the highest number of vacancies. We're competing with the private sector. I'm not confident that we'll be successful in this, in the HR new position, being able to resolve this problem for us. But the one thing that I get asked at all 3 local government boards that I visit, the one thing that I get asked is about contract nursing. And this allows us to we've given the Human Resources Department a brand new wage study that is intended to correct the low wage, the positions that are hard to fill and retain. And we thought that based on the county administrator's recommendation and the HR director's recommendation, that we would give it a try. So I supported it, and if it doesn't work, then we do know that the ratio of human resource staff to employees is supposed to be, according to our HR department, 1 per 100, I'm sorry, 2 per 100. Ours is 1 per 100. So that would at least, help with the workload. And as you know, the executive committee of the delegation makes the final decisions. Just a couple of other things. The revenue for the nursing home, and this is just kind of interesting, I think. The revenue for the nursing home continues to be down. The reason why is because, again, because of COVID. We froze admissions because we don't have the staffing to properly care for the residents during this time of COVID. We've also had other problems. We have, CMS has told us that we have to vaccinate and masking is required, and we have lost people because of that. More than that, though, Craig Labor, an incredibly skilled and talented nursing home administrator, is expecting that the fourth booster, I don't know what I call it, fourth shot,
Second booster?
second booster, thanks Julia, will be mandated, and we have been told in no uncertain terms that we would lose employees. As a result of that, he has budgeted for a census in the nursing home of 100 beds versus last year it was 104.
So he's assuming some additional losses in staff.
Yeah. We got 135 beds.
So 35 of them are essentially have to be left empty because
That's right.
of the staffing.
That's right.
I mean, Athens has seen the same issue at the hospital in terms of just care beds, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really atrocious. So they're left empty because of staffing issues. I'm worried about the nursing home. You know, I'm the president of the New Hampshire Association of Counties as well. Nursing homes across the state, county nursing homes, and it might even be the private, and I think that some of the private nursing homes have closed. We're at 70% capacity. No one can get help. And I actually listened to C-SPAN this morning, and I heard Senator Whitehouse ask the Health and Human Services Secretary, what are you doing about the high cost of contract nurses, nursing staff? And we have asked Senators Hassan, Shaheen, and Representatives or Congresspeople Custer and Pappas the same thing. And they're working on it.
Yeah,
And the price gouging. I'm sorry, I am going to say that, the price gouging. You know, we have nurses that are leaving the nursing home, and I'm sure that you've heard this, leaving the nursing home to join agencies, and then coming back.
as traveling nurses.
Coming back,
Right.
yeah.
And
We
making a
just
lot
said,
more.
nope, that's not going to happen. Nope, sorry. The Human Resource Director said that we really can't, enable that.
Right.
You know. Outside of that, I thought you might be interested in learning that our ARPA money is being used for feasibility studies to have our own water supply, water wells, sewage. Craig Labor has a study that he submitted, a proposal for a study for an assisted living facility, cybersecurity, employee retention bonuses. Is that anywhere near brief?
Thank
Say
you.
yes.
Thank you.
There's
Just
a
say
lot.
yes.
There's a lot going on.
There's
What's
a
going
heck
on?
of a lot going on,
We
and I get kind of enthusiastic.
we can relate, Wendy.
Any other questions for Wendy? Thank you for coming all this way and briefing us, and sounds like your world is as hectic as ours.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for
Thank you
doing
very
it.
much. It's
Thank
good to
you,
see
Wendy. Nice to see you again.
So the next order of business is to review and consideration of the Bressett Fund funding requests. Which ones are up?
Oh, yeah.
Which,
Thank you.
Julie, I lost track of which ones we haven't, there's been a couple on the table, but which
Well,
ones haven't we
so-
officially?
So Peter Milliken and Rob Hausman are here to talk to you about the request for funding for the Friends of Oak Hill. That's the big ticket item tonight.
All
We
right.
have one other smaller ticket item to talk about.
All right.
But the big ticket item is the $100,000 per year for 2 years for the Friends of Oak Hill. Athos, you missed this discussion at the last meeting, So you hold on to your seat while Peter and Rob. So guys, come on up to the
Would you like to come to
microphone.
the mic, gentlemen?
I included information in your packets about the proposal, but I thought it would be helpful to have Peter and Rob come talk about this, because they're much closer to the operational challenges and details than I am.
Thank you. First, I'm Rob Houseman, Director of Planning, and I've served on the Oak Hill Study Committee with, among others, Peter and Joanna. And an organization has been formed that Peter can speak to. And Julia asked me to be here tonight in case you had any questions, and I immediately reached out to Peter and asked if he could come also to make sure he spoke to the Friends of Oak Hill and the proposal that's before you. So with that, I'd like Peter to give a brief overview.
Peter, introduce yourself, please.
Oh, I'm Peter Milliken. Thank you. Thank you for considering this. The background of this is long now. It's been something that's been going on for the last 7 years, and I and a number of others have been an active part of the Forward CRC program. And as we were looking around at, how to think about that program and the threats to that program, in the end, what we kept coming back to after we had, all these great kids, the schools are right next to the ski trails. We have lots of great volunteers, but we had a lack of snow. And, that is an issue where we ended up canceling lots of practices. And so, as you can see that's going on in many other communities, we reached out to the college, who runs Oak Hill currently, and said, why don't we collaborate on a project to bring snowmaking lights and improve trails to Oak Hill, so that, for us, the inspiration was more, some of the youth programs and recreational skiing, but for Dartmouth, obviously, they had interest in their racing program and their outing club. And so that's kind of started this long process of collaboration with Dartmouth, which, it hasn't gone quickly, but we've developed a feasibility study and a set of plans that now is ready for implementation. And so we've now kind of reached a point with the college and with the Friends of Oak Hill, which is this new nonprofit, to raise funds and to begin the permitting, planning, and construction process for these improved trails. And as we kind of heard more about the Bressett Fund and what its purpose is, it seemed like where we are now is kind of this perfect use for where we are planning and permitting stage. We've got lots of soft costs that we're kind of working on to get this off the ground. And so that's why we're here. We did submit a letter and some background materials, which hopefully you have. But I'd love to answer questions or go through history or whatever makes sense for you all.
I don't know. I apologize for being cynical because I am a skier. I'm an outdoor person.
Yeah.
With the world warming up, do we have enough cold weather to justify this?
So that's not the first time we've gotten that question. And so, as part of our feasibility study, we researched that.
Yep.
And so the short answer is yes. So we've got, I can't tell you in 50 years, but I can tell you for kind of the useful life of the project, 20 or 30 years, that there'll be enough cold days where the snowmaking will be a huge asset to the community. And so again, that was something we studied, but there's also some examples in Boston. There's a snowmaking facility, and for a cross-country ski center, golf course outside of Boston. And
Yeah, I'm familiar. That's
Okay.
I know where that one is.
And so that is decades south of us if you kind of think about climate change. And so we should have many years and decades of use from snowmaking.
In this project, do you make the snow centrally and then haul it out to the trails?
No, so there's two different ways. That's one way of doing it. And so Craftsbury Outdoor Center, I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's one way of doing it. That's a very high labor way of doing things. And as we know from this area, labor is not easy to A more common way now is to actually pipe a system around a loop, and you'll have guns along that loop, which will make snow, and then you don't have to move the snow very far.
Peter, can you just, maybe just give a little blurb as to when and how often snowmaking happens on cross-country ski trails in general?
Yeah, so it's happening just more. I mean, in some ways, it's, and if you kind of look at it regionally, what's happened over the last decade, Waterville, Maine, which is where Colby College is, has done a project very similar to this. Middlebury, Rankin Center has done a project very similar to this. Proctor now has the snowmaking. Holderness School, which is about an hour east of here, they're doing a project very similar in scope to what we're envisioning right now. So it's kind of becoming a price of entry. If you want to have, I mean, alpine skiing's been doing it for decades, right? And it's really no different, except people kind of imagined that with cross-country skiing, you go off into the woods and you have your natural snow. But the reality is now is to have reliable skiing, snowmaking is part of the future.
And, yeah, Rob knows what I was going for too.
So I think the other half of the answer for the question is that for cross-country skiing, you try to make snow once,
Right.
early in the season when the ground is frozen, and then, if necessary, you come back in to patch it up before an event. But it's much more durable snow than natural snow, so it can withstand these huge temperature swings, and that's what we're trying to propose.
Yes.
So this is a simpleton question, Peter, but has the snowmaking technology improved or changed, and particularly with cross-country trails? Right now I'm thinking about what I see on like the skiway, let's use for an example, those huge plumes of snow, but then they also cover a huge open area. If you have, a 20-foot wide trail, has the technology changed enough so that the guns are actually more aimed or are lower, so you don't spend a lot of time putting snow up in the pines?
Yes, the short answer is yes. So it's more energy efficient and it's more directed. So
It is.
we would use wands, not fan guns, two different
Okay.
types.
Okay.
And so it would be directed so that there's less waste and so less of it in the woods.
And as Rob says, when you have bare spots, as everybody comes around the corner the same way, so that a wand could actually point the snow into that bare spot once a week or whatever it might be needed.
Yeah, I mean, snowmaking snow is a lot more durable than natural snow.
Uh-huh.
So ideally what you do is you put a pretty thick cover on at the beginning of the
Initially,
season.
yeah.
And then that will last you much, or if you're lucky, all the season. But then you would touch up areas like
Yeah.
that maybe got sun or was a big rain event, which we've gotten very used to.
Right.
And then you maybe do some touching up. But the really, the majority of the snow that's made would be made during that first big cold spell.
Thank you.
Can you just clarify the financial math?
Yeah.
So on your chart, it adds up, I think it's page 10, 5.4 million.
Yeah.
And on your description, you talk about approximately 5 million, that the cost will be split between Dartmouth College and Friends of Oak Hill. Split
It's fifth, so
50/50?
So we had a feasibility study was created with kind of some experts in the industry, both from planning, trail development, snowmaking, lighting, and so kind of a multi-party group and some financial kind of expertise. And so when we kind of looked at the goals of the project, which included a number of courses, a number of ski courses, and lighting and snowmaking, what you see there is kind of the full scope of the project. And so that's the $5.5 million. We are now budgeting a $5 million project. We're anticipating that probably the longer of the courses will not be done, so there's some savings there. And there's also some savings because depending on if Dartmouth was going to be kind of the lead on the project versus the community, there's just a different cost framework. And this was built originally with the framework where Dartmouth was going to be kind of operating and managing the project.
So then the rest of the paragraph, you say, so that's 2.5 you need to raise, but you have a boost with a 1.25 million matching gift.
So of the community portion, which is 2.5, we have a $1.25 million gift that's lined up already. That's correct.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you have any other at the moment lined up, or is
Yeah,
that?
I have what we call our early believer group.
Yeah.
And so one of the nice things about having worked on this so long is that you develop a long list of people who, are real believers. We are, this is a community which has an enormous amount of support for cross-country skiing. When we started this project, we had 250 kids in our program. This is a youth program at Fort Sayre. Now we have almost 350 kids. And so it's just this is a very supportive community for cross-country skiing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is your big gift then, is it a matching, when you raise funds, those funds come in, and if you don't match it, they won't either?
So for the community side,
Yeah.
it is technically a matching gift.
Right,
It is somebody who really wants the project to happen. So,
Yeah.
I've kind of looking at over our fundraise, which is something we're planning to do over the next year as we develop our permitting and planning. I'm confident that we'll get there.
and we also understand that there is a very serious collegiate level competition coming to Hanover, and won't that require that extra loop that you just talked about not using?
That's a great question. So, so Dartmouth bid for and won the NCAA championships for 2025.
Yes.
And so that does not require a 5K loop. And so
Oh.
one of the things, kind of the realities of our world now is people for racing, this is for races now,
Mhm.
people are racing on shorter loops. So if you kind of look at the Olympics, you'll notice that a lot of the loops are
Yeah.
2.5 kilometers, 3 kilometers, or sprint loops are a lot
Yes.
shorter than that.
Yes.
And so, I think that's just the future of skiing, and I liken it, people hate when I do this, but I liken it in some ways to a swimming pool.
Mhm.
You need to create an artificial space
Mhm.
that's contained and small, and when we have our natural snow, we all get to enjoy it, and we
Mhm.
use the extended trail systems, but you want to have that reliable core, and that reliable core is 3 kilometers in our case. Which is pretty, 2.5, 3 kilometers is a pretty standard, and so that is adequate, more than adequate for the college races. We actually have a little 3.3, which, so then you've got three of those loops, gives you 10 kilometers. So that's kind of a traditional, or 4 times 2.5. So those are both, will be workable within our plan.
Thank you.
And I apologize if you went through this before, but what about the ongoing operating costs after construction?
Yeah, so the reliance will be on, as is today, there is a, season passes. So season passes, day passes will be the prime funding of the project. Some of the $5 million there is baked in are several years of operating losses in that. But there will be kind of an ongoing need to, make sure that we, expand the pool, if you will, so that, the bulk of the operating costs are covered by people buying season passes. And in many places, that's very difficult. One of the reasons that this is such an exciting project is it's a mile from downtown in Hanover, and it's right in the school system. And again, kind of looking at the hundreds of families that are involved who, buy passes now, we're fortunate that kind of we have that dedicated body where they're not, we're not an hour and a half away, which is, or whatever it is. So, the concept of developing a facility with, near break-even capacity is reasonable in this case.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Excuse me, do you have prospects for scholarships for under 18s for whom this is not? They do it at Hanover High in terms of our participation fees over there.
Yeah. So that would be more of something for Fort Sayre. So I'm also on the Fort Sayre Council, and so we have a scholarship fund, and
Okay.
we provide scholarships to families in need and children in need each year. And we're pretty active in trying to make sure that people actually take that money, because that's one of the issues is actually
Right.
getting the word out.
I know,
getting
it's
people to
available.
take
Yeah, I know.
money. One of the things, though, I think access is a big issue. this so interesting is because the school system is right there. You have that ability to have kids literally walk to the ski trails. And one of the things that is kind of in our plans is to have some grant funding to develop, to have skis, so that the school systems actually have a quiver of skis that they can use either in the classrooms or, for kids who want them. We do that in a less official way with Ford Sayre now, but it'd be nice to see that is a more active. I think there's opportunity there.
Great.
Okay. And just to make sure we've said it, this is obviously open to the public. It's not a Dartmouth facility
Yes, so-
per se,
No,
but it's shared between Dartmouth and the town
Yeah.
gets access through season passes.
absolutely. So this would be, would be a lease agreement with the college, and so it would be operated by a nonprofit entity, and it would be, the nonprofit entity will have a board of directors, which is, very much, all about kind of growing the sport of skiing, making it accessible for the community, the Upper Valley community. And Dartmouth is a part of that Upper Valley, but it's not, it absolutely would be the whole Upper Valley community.
So.
Just one more thing, I think
Yeah.
it's important to note that a good portion of the facility, maybe a third of the trails, and water is coming from another landowner.
Yes.
And that's really important, that there's collaboration and cooperation, and maybe you could just speak a little about that.
So one of the things that's made this project more complex, but I think is part of the things that makes it interesting for people is that it's a multi-party, this is not just about one organization finding a piece of land and building trails and making it happen. This has been a collaboration with Dartmouth College, with Ford Sayre, and Hanover Improvement Society, amongst other, in the town, really. And so it's I find that, again, I don't want to get too philosophical, but in this world, not a lot of people are coming together to collaborate on projects. And that, again, that adds complexity, but it means the community is working together and aligning kind of with the joint interest. And so, again, as Joanna's saying, Hanover Improvement's a big part of that. And, thinking about longer term kind of four-season recreation, it's Forest Pond as well, which is where a lot of the trails are, and the easier trails. That's pretty exciting.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Just one extra question. You stressed the word Upper Valley, which made me think of the towns that are just right next to us. You will be obviously letting the teenagers in Lebanon, the teenagers in Orford and so forth, all know about this so that it doesn't just become a Hanover Lyme Dartmouth College.
Yes.
Great.
Peter is from the other side of the river. You were supposed to
My office is here in Hanover, but I'm technically a resident of Norwich.
Yeah.
So I've come
Oh,
across
no,
it.
by Hanover, I was using the phrase Dresden School District.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. No,
This is, listen, we are very fortunate to be where we are.
Mhm.
And, the location with the schools in Hanover is particularly appealing, but, ideally, we'll be thinking about this a little more broadly. in every way as
Fantastic.
well.
That's great.
Okay, any more discussion? I move that we approve a grant of $200,000 to this project.
I'll second that. Well, maybe I should, I don't know what hat I'm wearing.
I'm happy to second it. I have no.
And that's $100,000 from this fiscal
Well,
year.
I think we have to discuss that
Okay,
because
yeah.
I don't think yes, well, let's approve
Sure, sure.
$200,000
At the motion. Yep,
and we'll figure out how to time it.
okay.
So I moved it, you
I seconded it.
seconded it. Further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I look forward
Thank you.
to sharing it with you as we kind of make progress.
We do too.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And
Thank you.
Is there a second?
yes, so John Sherman from our Parks and Recreation Department has suggested that the board approve an appropriation of $10,000 from the Bressett Fund to help toward the costs of renovating the baseball field down at Sachem Field, next to Campion. In working with the Dresden Baseball
Yes, that's what they're called
Association, correct? Possibility that there'll be an additional need, but at this point, John's asking for $10,000 for help toward the cost of renovation of the field.
Do you want me to describe that at all?
Yeah, no, go ahead, please, Alice.
The baseball field over at Sachem, which is right next to the Campion rink, sort of tucked in there in that corner, it's a pretty location. And it's the first time that baseball players go from the Little League field to the larger regular size diamond, which is a 60-foot, 90-foot base pass and 60-foot 6-inch pitching. It is not the infield is the problem. The infield is basically hard pack, and it's just awful for the kids to play on because you can imagine what happens when you get a fast ground ball that comes at you on hard pack. It just picks up speed and kicks right into you. And it's not the way baseball's played. It's woefully subpar and in need of upgrading. And what's being proposed is to put a grass infield in, which is great. I'll just stop right there. It's otherwise a very nice facility. It's got good drainage. It's got nice, adequate dugouts. It's in a nice location. It's easy for people to get to. But it's been in need of upgrading for a very long period of time.
I would say it needs upgrading for decades, because I can remember playing
Yes,
softball
yes.
on that.
Yes.
And I haven't played softball in several decades. The question, who owns the field?
The town does.
We do.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And does this entail digging up the hard pack? I mean, literally
I don't know what,
scooping up and taking it
the
away
actual-
so that you can,
Yes, so
You got-
my understanding is the hard pack is dug up, then you
Yeah.
bring in improved fill and seed.
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Right, so it's
I would
it's
assume
a
so.
multi-step process,
Right.
and the time to do it would be late summer,
Right.
early fall,
Mhm.
once you get through the summer.
Excellent.
So-
Other questions? Brian?
I have seen the field and I think we should be improving it. But I'm gonna go back to when Hank Tenney was the director of Parks and Recreation and we were gonna have a master plan
I know, and I.
for Parks and Rec, and we were gonna have just like Peter does in terms of capital improvements. These are all of our facilities,
Right,
this is
right.
their condition, this is how much money we need to spend annually to maintain it. And so I just want the record to note that I support our recreation opportunities and wanna make sure that we have facilities that are safe for everyone to use, but I don't like the way we're doing piecemeal things when it comes to recreation. And I really think that should be a priority of ours.
John and Liz know that this is a priority, and I will be communicating with my successor that this is an opportunity to start working on in earnest. I also think that there's potential infrastructure grant money available. So it's something that we'll be keeping our eyes on through the Parks and Recreation Department. And in addition, Athos, the Eagle Scouts are always asking me for ideas for projects. If dugouts would be, I'll put that on, I keep a running list of things that crop up that I hear
Yeah.
would be ideal Eagle Scout projects.
I
The
haven't-
Eagle Scouts did the dugouts down at.
They did. That was Chris
At
Stockton.
Tenny, right, yeah, so if that makes sense, I'll make sure that's on the list that I turn over to Alex.
Yeah, I haven't been in those dugouts in 4 or 5 years, but I was informed that they're deteriorating.
Right.
And they were adequate back then.
One of the things I'll just note, because we're not quite sure how to read the trend, if you recall, we had a group of Little League parents who were very supportive and raised money, $70,000 the town spent, a combination of $35,000 privately raised and our matching, to build the new Little League field on Grass Road.
Yeah.
That's not used at all anymore.
No, it's only used for practice, unfortunately.
They don't want that field, they want to use Tenny Park. They don't like that field, and
Because of the infrastructure, parking and,
it's
What?
a league, designed for league certified field, but it just, they prefer Tenny Park, and so nobody wants to use it anymore. And it's unfortunate, because there's a field that's going to waste. And a lot of money was put into building that field during a period of time when we had a group of parents in the community who were Little League lovers, who had kids who were playing Little League, who were really committed. And so we're seeing baseball trends sort of changing and trying to figure out how to meet those needs while also determining how we can accommodate other needs is the challenge.
That's a valid point, Julia, and, you know, as you know, I've been out of touch with this organization for years and years and years.
Yeah.
I like that field up at Grass Road. I always thought it was lovely. I don't know why it's not being used.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
it sits, it's kind of sad, we mow it, but it doesn't,
Yeah.
it's just, it's not low.
Okay.
If there's, if I may answer, if there's any way of revitalizing the interest there, because the tennis fields go right through a neighborhood that has a lot
Of traffic.
of traffic and a lot of small people and a lot of residents who are getting very tired of people traveling much too fast through their neighborhood. And that wouldn't be happening if those cars were up in Grass Road.
Oh, yeah, yes, it would. I mean, there would be
be-
fast
it'd be
traffic
at
there
Grass Road.
too.
But it would be on Grass Road, which
Doesn't it do, is
It-
it better?
Not as many people.
we've.
But I
yeah,
mean, that,
definitely not.
it's
I
nice to have
understand.
people walk to fields too, so you've got
They
this
don't
challenge.
drive there very
I know.
fast,
I
very big
digressed,
cars.
but it's just to give you a sense
Okay,
of what we're.
let's bring it back to, do we want to support a $10,000 grant from the Bressett Fund for this project?
I'll move it.
I'll second it. Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And Julie, those are the loose ends, right? We've got the,
Yep.
we approved the ones for the helping the merchants.
Yes,
Restaurant owners.
the only other thing I would add is that a group is putting together a fishing derby for kids this summer at Stores Pond. And they requested $3,500 in funds to buy fish to stock the pond for the fishing derby. But I think I can probably find that money in our operating.
All right. So we're done with the Bressett Fund.
That's a very expensive fishing derby for
I
Stock the fish so they can take the fish out?
I think
Yeah.
I think the price of fish has gone up.
Oh my
So
gosh, yeah.
I think we can find that.
There's a lot of herring around
Right, right.
eating fish these days too.
Right.
All right, moving right along here.
Uh,
I move that we set a public hearing for Monday, June 6, 2022, to review and consider the proposed rate and fee schedule for FY '23.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we have set that date. We need to consider a deed waiver.
Yep.
Do we need to move that we waive that one? Is that the motion?
So, no, you would move to approve taking that property for deeding if the full amount of property taxes are not paid. However, because the amount that's owed is so de minimis, our recommendation is that we waive the deed and not take the property.
Can you explain? I've been trying to figure this out. What is that? So what are you proposing?
So, before the town takes any property for deeding, Athos, the board has the ability to waive the deeding, to waive the taking of the property.
Okay.
Typically, we deed properties when there's a substantial amount of property tax owed, and the likelihood of that tax being paid is extremely slim. In this case, the property owner has paid a substantial amount of the money that was owed. We think they may pay the remainder in time. And because the amount that's owed is $2,570, it's a very small amount of money, relatively speaking, we're not recommending taking deed to this property.
Okay, so what motion do you need to?
So I need the board to agree to waive the deed.
That's what I asked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I move that we waive the deed.
I like how you said that. Second.
And we do not read into the minutes the property address.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
We have waived the deed. And we have I move that we accept the kind donation from Tom and Barbara Hall, the amount of $500 for the Etna Library.
So second.
Very generous gift, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I think they're back from their travels. Bill, you want to give us an update on our town manager search?
Certainly. First, I'd like to again thank Julia for her flexibility. For the public, this discussion of Julia's retirement has been going on for a while. We asked the select board dealing with town issues and COVID and other things, encourage Julia to think about having a later date than she originally had planned, and she was very kind to accept that, and we appreciate that flexibility greatly. It really has helped us come to I think, a very good conclusion. So what I'd like to do is summarize our hiring process for the record, and then we can have a vote. So the Select Board commenced the hiring process of our next town manager in November 2021. In reality, it started about a year earlier than that. We interviewed 3 national executive search firms. The Select Board hired the Raffledis search firm with Catherine Tuck Parish as our consultant for the search. Catherine coordinated a community survey seeking input on what traits, qualities, and characteristics should our next town manager need to be successful. We had 570 community members participate in the survey. Catherine, from her experience, said that was amazingly high. The results of the survey were posted on the town website for everyone to view. Catherine met with the town department directors and Julia Griffin. The consultant also met with 23 members of our community and focus groups in 3 different groups. And these individuals represented a cross-section of our community of business owners, town committee members, local nonprofit leaders, Dartmouth College administrator, Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center administrator, and Dartmouth students. She shared all that input with the Select Board as we developed the job recruitment brochure. The position was posted in various national publications and websites. We received 21 applicants from 15 different states. The Select Board worked with our consultant to identify 7 candidates who were interviewed in March. We narrowed down to 3 candidates who were invited to town to be interviewed. 2 applicants accepted our invitation. The final 2 candidates were interviewed in early April by the Select Board, 11 Hanover department directors, Julia Griffin, and 3 community members. The community members were Yolanda Baumgartner, the co-chair of the Sustainable Hanover Committee, Carrie Callahan, vice chair of the Hanover Finance Committee and former school board member and local businessman, and Josh Kennison, vice president, Dartmouth College, campus services and institutional projects. After all the input from all the interviewers, the Select Board has decided to offer the position to Alex Torpey. I'd like to move a vote, or would you like to move it, Harold?
No, please do.
Okay, I'd like to move a vote for the Select Board to hire our next Hanover Town Manager, Alexander Torpey, effective in this position on June 27, 2022. We would sign off on a contract which he has approved, and my understanding on the regulations, we need to take an official public vote.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion. Oh, you're supposed to say that.
Discussion.
May I say something?
You certainly may.
You were probably going to say this, so I apologize, but I would like to just extend profound thanks to Bill for spearheading this project. He is owed.
Bill, how many of these have you done?
One, town manager.
One town manager. We didn't get a chance for 26 years.
Yeah, so it might,
Sorry about that.
so one of the things I'd like to state as a community member, this will be the 12th nonprofit local executive director I've been involved in hiring in my local career while I was working for pay for another organization.
I also want to just echo Athos, because Bill has done a yeoman's job here, brought tremendous professionalism to this work. It takes a lot of coordination, it takes a lot of persistence, it takes a lot of coordination, and Bill, you've served us well, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
But
But I also think, though, sorry, the motion on the table is whether to support appointing Alex Torpey as our next town manager.
Correct.
And I think that we need to commend Bill for his work, but I think we should also talk about, it was a lot of time, and we took this really seriously, and we think we had two great candidates. I think that I feel really good about the process. I think that we had an excellent search firm, and I think with Bill's incredible dedication to working with the search firm, we were able to, I think we'll see if we're successful, but I'm hoping we're successful. It's an exciting opportunity, and I think for me, it was a huge amount of time for the five of us as well, not nearly as much as Bill put in, but I think it's important for people to know that this is probably our most important job that we've had to undertake, and I'm looking forward to having Alex in town, and sad that we're gonna lose Julia, but so happy for you after all these years.
So let's take a vote. I think it's been moved, I think it was seconded. It's been moved and seconded that we offer Alex the position as town manager. All those in favor?
Aye.
I just, for the public, I want to read the press release that went out today, just to give you some ideas, some more reference points. So we issued a press release today. It says, the Hanover Selectboard is very pleased to announce that Alex Torpey will be our next town manager. Alex will start the new position on June 27th, 2022. Alex comes to us from New Jersey, where his interest in town government began. After serving on the Public Library Board and writing for the local newspaper in South Orange, at age 23, he was elected as mayor of his hometown and subsequently served as a municipal administrator in Lambertville and Leona, New Jersey. As a municipal administrator, Alex has worked primarily focused on long-term budgeting, planning and transparency, community engagement, emergency preparedness, technology, and sustainability. Beyond that, Alex is passionate about engaging others in civic process. He has taught in the Seton Hall University Masters of Public Health Administration program since 2014. He consults, podcasts, and writes about local government, management, technology, philosophy, nature, and sustainability. He has consulted with organizations such as Sustainable New Jersey, and his most recent project was to build and pilot a new civics curriculum for a New Jersey middle school. Alex earned his BA from Hampshire College in Massachusetts in 2009 and his Master's in Public Administration from John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City in 2013. In his free time, you will most likely find Alex outdoors, camping, fishing, hiking, doing nature photography, or riding his bicycle or motorcycle. He is an avid reader and writer and enjoys traveling to learn about new places. Alex has also been a volunteer EMT since 2010. So we welcome Alex to the town, and I think what catched all of us in all the people we interviewed, and was Alex's enthusiasm, his embracing of new technologies, and his absolute commitment to civic engagement. And we welcome him here to Hanover. And our job now is to make Alex successful. And getting a new town manager, getting a new boss is difficult. We all have a long relationship with Julia. And now a new person comes on board, and magically all that history goes away. And we have to rebuild it with a new person. We have to help them, we have to engage in them, we have to build confidence with them, and that is hard on the entire community, including the select board, department heads, and all of us. And I think our commitment now is to make Alex a very successful new town manager, and we're all going to launch into that very soon. Any other comments by the board?
I just wanted to add a yes to what you just said, that having Julia as our town manager for so long, none of us around the table have known anybody else, and that she has made our jobs on the select board really, I'm going to say easy, Julia, because she's always had us so well prepared. A lot of the work that she does behind the scenes our citizens don't even know the names of the people you work hard with. Here in Hanover, Concord, our delegation in Washington, and we, as a select board, are, in fact, our jobs are going to get a bit more difficult in the next couple, 3 years, as we help Alex come on board, make all of these relationships, understand all of the committees, and as I say, because Julia's been doing it for so long, she makes it look easy, and a lot, and so there's a lot that we don't have to do that we now ought to do, and so we as a select board are going to be stepping up a little bit more to be closer partners with Alex than we have had to be your partner, because you are such an autonomous leader. So it's going to be different for us, and I think we all recognize that.
Thank you. Others? Okay, we have a new town manager. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
I know you're happy.
Okay, so I called Julia this morning, and I said, Julia, you know, you still can change your mind. She didn't bite on that. She didn't bite.
And we all know that one of the first things she's doing is already planning for that cross-country trail season pass that she's getting.
All right, so we have a new town manager. Welcome, Alex. We have approval in minutes of May 2nd. Any additions? I've looked at them. I have no additions, corrections, or deletions. Do you have something?
I actually found the whole, I had asked for the details of the vote that was being proposed, the planning
Yeah.
board review, Rob. I read that and I was totally confused, even though I was here. So I was just wondering if we could tidy that section up from, I think it's labeled number 9, other business.
In the minutes?
In the
I thought
minutes.
what we did was literally,
Do you have some specific?
Well, I
Yes,
just
Jen.
think that the articles should reflect the amendments, and that we should clearly state that, you know, the last 4 were petitioned
Okay.
amendments,
okay,
and,
let me see what I can
So-
do with
so we
them.
I mean, I can, I'm happy
Should we
to,
upgrade them and do them again, please?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
I
take a
can just
stab at it.
tidy up.
I haven't looked at these, so I'll
Yeah.
take a stab at it.
I mean, it's just,
do
I think
remember
it's
your
really
request.
important.
It's important.
Yeah.
I do remember
Yeah.
your request, and it is important.
and I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
important for us for next year, because petitioned amendments are of particular, when 25 people can change our laws,
Right.
and we can't really make any modifications to the language that
Right,
comes
right.
in, I think that we should be thinking seriously about requiring a supermajority for all petition amendments. And I don't know what that means, but I think it's something we should be talking to the planning board about, because I think that it's just 25 people, that's a very small segment of our population,
Sure.
so.
Well, it's state law, so it's not something we have any control
Oh,
over.
no, I know we don't that, but we do have there are some, we could have a policy that any petition amendments that come in, we could seek a 2/3 majority vote for approval.
I'm not sure we can do that, Joanna, by state statute, but Rob would know for sure.
Yep.
So that's certainly a discussion that can be had at the planning board. It is not as easy as the town deciding they want to require that of their town meeting.
Mhm.
But I'd have to talk to Rob about.
But it's also something that, as we know, the RSAs are really cumbersome.
Right,
And sometimes when we think we can't do something, I
we
mean,
can.
I know you can do 2/3 or a supermajority in certain conditions.
Right.
And it's a function of where people live and who's affected by the zoning
Correct.
amendment, and so anyway, in some cases, it's easier than other cases, but I think it's worth considering, or at least discussing openly, so people understand what the rules are.
All we did with these minutes was paste in the slides, because those were what it's the information that Rob presented as part of his presentation. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the minutes to recast anything else that you said, to make sure it's properly
So-
reflected here.
I actually think Rob could go through this and just make it clear. I just think the amendment and articles should be correct. The petitioned articles should be duly noted. And it should just say, There were 4
Yep,
or
yep.
6 articles proposed by the planning board.
Yeah.
There were 4 petitioned
Yep.
amendments by citizenry,
Yep,
and these are as follows.
okay.
Just kind of like what you wanted for an explanation, Bill, at that meeting.
Right, right.
This was just a little hard to understand.
So it doesn't,
Next time.
Just table that.
let's table that.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I just add,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, that it's my intention, because Joanna and I share this concern, it's my intention to go to the planning board and ask them these questions, as well as an additional question that many voters came up to me on election day and asked, why aren't the articles and the amendments, why, because you always say Article 10, Amendment 9 kind of thing, and it just is very confusing in presenting them and so forth, and in reading them and such. I mean, Betsy went through and told me about the fact that the officers are there as, as.
They have to be
the
amended
first
to
one.
Article number 1.
Right. People still asked about it and whether or not we could put those officers at the end so that those, she or Bobby Hitchcock, who is now going to take her place, I would like that looked at
Okay.
because voters are concerned.
Well, and another thing that came up during the conversation was there's only one public hearing required, and that
Yes.
the planning board could
Yes.
potentially schedule a second public hearing, so more on petition amendments.
Right.
Not that you can change the language, but at least you could thoroughly discuss it,
Right.
or spend more time discussing the changes, so
Right.
we could get the word out in terms of what it means. And
Right.
sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not good, and, it's all personal, perspective, I think.
Yep. Let me take a crack at them.
We
Okay.
learn something every time we have petitioned articles.
Yes, they do, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've tabled the minutes. Administrative report.
It's that time of year where we're nearing year end of the fiscal year, but also beginning to plan implementation of our capital projects, because the budget's now been approved to town meeting, and even though the fiscal year doesn't start until July 1, infrastructure implementation planning is beginning. I have to tell you, just as Commissioner Piper shared, we're really worried about the pricing we're getting for some of our projects. So much so that we're seriously thinking about deferring as much of the capital work as we can until next summer, in the hopes that things will resolve, particularly as relates to the supply chain impacts. Harder to tell on the fuel pricing impacts, but the supply chain impacts are probably the single most challenging nuance of capital projects implementation right now, because you either can't get bids, or you can't get bids with firm pricing, or you're getting bids with very significant contingencies because they can't get pricing. And they want to be certain that they can guarantee getting properly paid for their project, depending on what they end up having to pay for materials at the time of acquisition. So Peter, Jeremy Clay, our deputy director, and Christina Hall, our town engineer, are looking very closely at what projects we may be able to defer, and what projects we need to undertake. The other piece that is a challenge for all communities across the country is that with the infrastructure funding that's now available, and I think I've shared this with the board, there's an implementation timeline that we need to adhere to, but we can't possibly adhere to that timeline because everybody's scrambling to adhere to the same very tight timeline under the same conditions we're experiencing right now. Lack of materials, lack of contractors, and excessive expenditures, excessive costs of projects. So it is a very odd situation. And we've been in regular communication with our federal delegation. They're very much aware of this challenge because they're hearing it from all of the New Hampshire communities that they're working with. And so it's going to be an interesting summer to see how this plays out, and to see if Congress is going to decide that they have to build in an extra long lead time for implementation of these projects, given the external constraints we're facing in supply, pricing, and oil prices. And that's it for administrative reports.
Selectboard reports. Joanna?
Nothing to report?
Nothing to report?
I'm going to report on a very successful town meeting, and appreciate everyone coming out. And I think it was particularly meaningful that at the end of the meeting, we recognized Julia to a very robust standing ovation that would not stop until she asked us to stop. So I think that made this town meeting a very successful town meeting.
And you know, the flowers you gave me still look absolutely gorgeous a week in.
Great.
They're sitting in my living room at home and they're beautiful. So Robert's flowers outdid themselves.
Great.
It's a beautiful assortment of flowers.
We were a little worried that was like bringing coals to Newcastle, but we took the risk. Ellen?
Nothing to report.
Any other business? There has been a request for a non-public session to discuss items pursuant to RSA 91A 32A, C, and E.
Bill Garrity, yes. Office Francis, yes.
Peter Christie, yes.
Nancy Carter, yes.
Joanna Whitcomb, yes.
We are in non-public session. Thank you all.